in the United States. And if you subscribe to the Philippine News, there is a column there by Mr. Rodis, is it?
Rodis.
Okay. It's a beautiful column. It says it all. I hope you can get hold of a copy. It is a very recent copy. I think it's 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. It seems like there's a lady there waving a copy. It is a very interesting column. I'm proud to be a part of this symposium this afternoon because behind me here are 5 people who had come to this country ahead of us, sort of paving the way for us. They have been either directly or indirectly responsible for what we are and how we are here now in the United States. Don't you think so? Yep. So I welcome you to this, and as part of the continuing celebration of October as the History Month of Filipino-Americans coming to the United States, once again, I welcome you. Without further ado, I would like to give you the president of the Filipino-American National Historical Society, Mr. Will Orlandria. Willie?
Friends, ladies and gentlemen, this month is as stated by our Master of Ceremonies, that this is the Filipino-American History Month. And I would like to read to you the proclamation by the office of by the Governor Barbara Roberts, State of Oregon.
First came here also in 1973 under the working visa. I went to New Jersey, and in the nurses' lounge where I work, most of us worked in the night shift, and most of us nurses there were Filipinos. And one time we were all in the nurses' lounge, and there was one American nurse taking her break, and we were speaking at the time. Of course, we cannot help speak our own dialect. That, you know what the American nurse said? I feel like a stranger in my own country. The next speaker, I think everybody knows him. Jess. If anybody here doesn't know Jess, then you don't have any insurance. He is the center of, or butt of our jokes most of the time. You know that he came to the United States in 1954 by joining the U.S. Navy. And also, he is the most eligible bachelor in the Filipino-American community. And how he maintained his state of celibacy, I'm not sure. I think we better ask him. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Jess Osilla.
Celibacy. I didn't take a vow of celibacy. Do I have to include very private things like...
I think you better justify that.
But anyway, 6 minutes is already running. Well, my name is Jess Osilla. It's supposed to be pronounced as Osilla, but now it's pronounced as Osilla, or sometimes maybe Osille. Osille. I was born in Santa Barbara, Pangasinan. I was born on May 3rd, 1953. I mean, 1935. I went to school in, of course, in Santa Barbara. I graduated from high school in Santa Barbara. Immediately after graduation from high school, I took the entrance examination for the Philippine College of Commerce, which I fortunately passed. So I went to Manila, attended the Philippine College of Commerce from 1952 to 54, when I graduated with associate degree in commercial education. And that's only 2 years, and I intended to pursue on to get a bachelor's degree in business administration. About September in 1954, I came upon a classmate who was typing a letter. And he's also from Pangasinan. He was my classmate. And I asked him what he was doing, and he said, "Oh, don't you know that the U.S. government is recruiting for the U.S. Navy?" I'm trying to apply, he said. So, well, let me try it too. So I taught my own, and we made our application to the Naval Station in Sangat Point for enlistment in the U.S. Navy. About a month later, here comes a letter from the U.S. Navy, from Sangat Point, for to report to Sangley for mental and physical examination. And when I got to Sangley with my friend, when we got to Sangley, I found out too that my cousin, who is also from Santa Barbara, and already in medicine proper at University of Santo Tomas, was also one of the examinees. And as I recall, on that day of processing, there were maybe about 60 of us who took the examination. And the first part of the examination was mental, and a lot of those 60 people dropped out. And on the physical examination, by the time the physical examination was finished, only 10 of us passed the test. And on that certain, I guess the process every day, but on that particular day, out of 60, about 10 of us passed the test. And we were told to go home and wait for further notice. And in October, and I was still going to school then, October, we received our final orders to report to Sangley Point for our final inspection and enlistment and to shift out. And backtracking a little bit there, before we went for our initial examination, I was told that a lot of Filipinos are failing the test because of being underweight. To make sure that I pass it, I ate a lot of bananas. That's one thing I remember about that. You have to eat a lot of bananas to get your weight up. I don't know if that really was a factor in my passing the test, but I did eat a lot of bananas. So finally, on October 18, I reported to Sangley, and there were about 40 of us that were supposed to be enlisted that day. And before the enlistment, we went through what they call physical inspection, and one guy was flunked out, he was sent home, but the rest of us were enlisted, sworn in, and then transported to Manila Bay by motorboat and boarded the USNS Barrett. What's it there? This is a military sea transport ship. They say that evening we got underway, and being my first time to be on board ship, I really got seasick. From Manila to Guam, because we docked in Guam. for that number of days, which is about maybe about a week, that I was so seasick that I have to subsist on crackers every day because I couldn't eat anything else. We were in Guam for about a day, and then in about another 10 days, we arrived in San Francisco. So my port of entry then is San Francisco, California. From there, we took a train to Navy Training Center, San Diego. And at the Naval Training Center, I was assigned, 4 of us Filipinos were assigned to Company 366. This company was comprised mostly of people recruits from South Carolina. So as you can see, people coming from the deep South, mingling with, and Filipinos assigned to this group of people who are highly prejudiced during that time. So. And having a background in ROTC, the company commander assigned me as a squad leader in charge of 9 people. And these people from the deep South, they don't take so well of a brown-skinned Filipino taking charge of them. I was given a really hard time until one day that I really, there was one guy that really gave me a hard time, that I couldn't control it anymore. I got so angry that I kicked the guy, and that's my first fist fight here in the U.S. So we had a fist fight right there at the middle of the barracks. No one even interfering. He was taller than I. I ended up with black eyes and bloody nose and everything. But since that time, I gained your respect. Every time, anything I tell these guys to do, they did it. And after recruit training, we were all friends. So that was 8 weeks of basic training. And then after basic training, I was assigned to a steward class P. Now that was the first time I really learned what steward is. Until recently, Filipinos, since the beginning, when they started, U.S. government started recruiting Filipinos, since 1953 when they started, all Filipinos were recruited into the steward rating. Rating means specialty or occupation. Just like in civilian, we have plumbers, electricians, machines made, bookkeeper, accountant. It's the same thing in the Navy. We call it rating. Steward rating means cook. You cater to, you provide services to the officer corps of the U.S. Navy. And the only people that are assigned to this rating are Filipinos and black guys. Okay, and that's the first time that I really learned what I was into. But I was already in the U.S. Navy. So I went through steward school, and I did pretty well. And in fact, I learned a lot there because, of course, you learn about cooking, you learn about American food, you learn about sitting tables, sometimes, those fancy with 9 sittings, things like that. We were pretty good at that. We learned those things. How to make up beds. And I graduated, of course there were maybe about 30, 40 steward students, and I was number 2, so I did pretty well. But the top is another Filipino guy. So from there, after steward class B, my first assignment was Whidbey Island, Oak Harbor, Washington, Naval Air Station, Oak Harbor, Washington. And when I reported to the personnel office at Naval Air Station, the personnel officer noted from my service record that I have some college education and that I can type, because of course at PCC you learn how to type too. And he was in need of a, what they call admin striker, someone that works in personal offices or admin offices. And so he said, well, Osilla, I can use you here. I need a human striker. So he called up the division officer of the BOQ. BOQ is a bachelor's officers' quarters. This is where the officers live, and this is where the stewards are assigned, you know, to cook for them and make up their bed, etc.
You know, we all have interesting stories to tell, I'm sure. I, for one, I came to the United States when the Philippines was under martial law. And on my passport, there was a big stamp, no dollars. At the time, of course, it was hard to get out of the country. And at the time also, I was able to get a working visa, and that's how I came to this country. And since there was a huge stamp of no dollars on my passport, I wasn't able to bring money with me. I had only, I probably was the poorest Filipino who came to the United States, $6 in my wallet. $6. And I'm glad I have a brother here in Portland who supported me, gave me shelter, fed me, and the rest is history, as they say. I'm sorry to say Mr. Casera is not here with us this afternoon. He is under the weather. Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't told about this. In place of Mr. Casera, I think Mrs. Markley? A 10-year-old child. And she is going to share with us her experiences. Her father was Santiago Tabino, one of the founders of the Filipino-American Association of Portland and vicinity. She's one of 10 siblings. Can you believe that? Especially here in the United States. But anyway, I know she had a wonderful childhood. She has 6 children and 3.5 grandchildren. She is an author, an artist, a publisher, and she also writes poetry. This lady indeed is a gifted person. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Myrna Perkins.
Friends and neighbors, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming and expressing an interest in our common goal of learning about our culture, our heritage, our roots, our history, and about each other. Our sharing our knowledge and our own very personal experiences during these symposiums enriches each and every one of us. It gives us a sense of community and oneness. We belong to each other. We are family. As a member of this family, let me introduce myself to all of you. My name is Maria Myrna Alfajardo Tabino Perkins. Like it. I was born in Makati, Rizal in the Philippines on the island of Luzon on December 2nd, 1943. Now this was during the war, and I wish I could remember everything that happened to me. It would probably be quite interestingly historical and would make a very good book. One of the incidents I would recount would be when a Japanese soldier spared my life instead of running me through with a bayonet. According to my family, he was a very young man and felt sorry for me since I was covered with sores from head to foot. My father, Santiago Tabino, was in the Philippine Scouts, and he is one of the survivors of the Bataan Death March. He is probably one of the very last of the Filipino survivors of that horrible incident. Now, he was a guerrilla fighting in the jungles, and my mother used to sneak through the woods in the jungle to bring him food and supplies. He joined the American Army, and he retired as first lieutenant in 1958 at Vancouver Barracks. And like Gloria said, he was one of the founders of the FANHS, and I remember many of the old-timers like George and Mersing and Stella and Sally. And I used to work with her as a girl in high school in White Stag. My mother was Guadalupe Alfajardo Tadino, and she graduated from the Samson Fashion Institute in 1947. And she worked at Meyer & Frank's, I think, and Nordstrom doing the embroidery on certain things, monograms. And she had 10 children, but only 9 are living. 8 here in the States, and 1 still in the Philippines. He is the youngest. Now, Albert is his name, and he lived with my maternal grandmother, who died in 1983. And he went back with her after my mother died of complications after a fire in 1962. Now, I was only in elementary school when I left the Philippines to join my father in the USA. And it was to enhance our educational and cultural growth. It certainly was not for economic or social enrichment, because we were considered as aristocrats. We lived in a big house with maids, servants, and a chauffeur. Our mother gave that up to live in hardships, to give us the benefit the USA can bestow. And then in 1953, after shots, paperwork, months and years of waiting, we were finally on our way to the United States of America on the USS Morton. We arrived in San Francisco on May 30th, 1953. We had stopped at Guam and Hawaii. We were not allowed to disembark in Hawaii because my sister Julie had questionable x-rays, and we were all quarantined because of possible exposure to TB. On the drive up from California, I remember being in awe of the snow piled high on the roadside, and Dad stopped to let us feel and experience the melting snow. We stayed at Kennewick, Washington for a couple of months, since Dad was stationed at Camp Hanford, Washington. And on July 4th, 1953, we moved to 1840 Southeast 44th in Portland. Now, that was one of the places that the FANHS used to have their meetings. I remember serving all the old-timers as a child and being there while they had their meetings. Now, we were amazed at the beautiful fruit trees on our little 50 by 100 lot. The branches were almost touching the ground, and they were loaded with apples. Now, there were 3 apple trees, 2 cherry trees, a pear, a plum, and 2 walnut trees on that little lot. And later, Dad planted some grapevines. As for education, I went to a Catholic school in Southeast Portland, St. Stephen's, and I graduated there in 1958, and I went to Franklin my freshman year, and then went to St. Mary's for my sophomore year, the one downtown, and finished and graduated at Franklin in 1962. I went down to, I've completed vocational training for hairdressing, cosmetology, and manicuring. I've been licensed since 1964, and I've taken courses at Portland State and have been admitted to Eastern Oregon State College for their external degree program. Being too busy, being a mother of 6, and trying to run the business, mine and my husband's, I had to eliminate my studies. Although I still took weekend seminars and workshops on my art and publishing interest. My life here in the States have been very satisfying and busy. I met my husband through a friend in 1962. We were married in 1964 and had 7 children. 6 are living and doing well. And my children are Mark, he's 27, Tammy 26, Lonnie 24, Lori 21, Jody 16, and Tabby is 8. Now, it's not bragging to tell you what my children has accomplished. This is to maybe inspire and help some of you that have children. We are Filipino-Americans, that's true, and a lot of people discriminate against us, but we can go about that. And my children have accomplished a lot in their young years. Like I say, I've got 6 of them, and we still have 2 at home. Now, I've had 3 student body presidents, almost 4. She tied. The other one tied, and then she lost it. But that's 4 student body presidents, okay? That's president of the whole school. And they've been class presidents, MVPs, you name it, the title has been given to them. They've been all-stars. I don't want to read it all because I think I can relate to you that it's a lot of hard work to be parents and to be also a minority and to transcend that. And we can do it and make a contribution if and when we want. Now, as for the jobs I have held, they are numerous. I have been babysitters for a lot of people when I was younger, and I have picked berries and beans and down Sandy and Burnside and out on the outlying areas while I was in school. And I've also worked like Sally at White Stag and Vista Casuals with my mother, sewing, when I was still in high school. And I've sold magazines door to door and encyclopedias, and I've been a telephone solicitor, and I've processed group mail for our COA and cargo trailers. And as a beautician, I work for Meyer Franks and Mr. Oscar at Gateway, Lisa's Witches Hut, and Magic Touch. Then I became a bookkeeper and secretary for my husband's business, and also a real estate manager and investment counselor for my family. Then in 1985, I was inspired and motivated to publish my books because my husband wanted to be an illustrator, and he had contracted cancer. And I thought, he didn't get his dream, so I helped him. And that's why I published my books. I had written my stories a long time ago, and a friend was holding one of them to illustrate it, and I think he held it about 3 or 4 years, and he didn't do anything with it. And so I thought, well, I'll do it for him. And he'll have his name on a book that says illustrator. And so we have 3 children's picture books, and my husband and my children helped me to do it. And they are in public school, and they have gone to the Philippines, they've gone to Japan, they've gone to Canada. And so I'm very proud of that. The words and illustrations in these children's books have always sparked my imagination, and I have always loved to read and draw, but I didn't really begin to write for enjoyment until 1979. I wrote children's stories, poetry, essays, and short stories. Many are still unpublished and waiting for yet another surge of inspiration and motivation to be injected and shared with the public. The day-to-day duties of parent, spouse, home and business manager are time and energy consuming. These necessary responsibilities are my foremost priorities. And so, my creative and artistic ambitions and goals must be temporarily set aside in order to perform at acceptable degree at my necessary duties. My social life has also suffered because family and business are very demanding, and I can't do too much without sacrificing one or the other. Now, I have belonged to many business, writing, art, educational, and cultural groups. I have met and enjoyed a diversity of people. I have been inspired, motivated, ridiculed, and praised by some of these same people. I am thankful to them and to each one of you for letting me experience the art and privilege of being a Filipino-American. Each one of us makes a difference and a vital contribution to life on this earth by being kind to each other. In other words, by being a loving and caring family. Love, share, and help one another achieve his or her most fantastic dreams, and by doing this, we will achieve and attain our highest endeavors and preserve our most precious culture, and heritage. Now, our family had selected Oregon because Dad had passed through Portland on the way down to San Francisco, and he really liked it. And friends helped him find the house on 44th Avenue. And as an interesting story I would like to share with you is my mushroom story. This was in 1972. We went down to the beach and we were enjoying the day, and we found some beautiful mushrooms. And to make a long story short, I picked them, took them home, washed them, and put them in the fridge. I, of course, took a sampling and got sick. And they were very poisonous. If I had taken any more, and if I hadn't washed them, I would not be here today. No, I said my prayers and said my apologies and said goodbye to my children. I lived, but take my advice. Don't pick wild mushrooms unless you know what you're doing. Thank you.
Don't be bashful.
45, 50 to 65. Unlike the second wave group who spoke here a year ago, that was October 20, as you relate your stories, it seems there's a big difference to what they encountered or what they experienced before. It could be said that they were the ones who paved the way for you, and as you relate your stories here, it seems you never had, or you only had slight difficulties. When you came here, you were teachers. You know what is America, unlike the people before you or that group before you who came here unknowingly or don't know much about what is for them here. I wonder if you encountered common difficulties, any privations or racism or whatever.
When you're
Because
very
as
young, can I say something?
Yeah, it's other.
When you're very young, which I was when I came here, it was very hard to be in school because the children make fun of your accent and you can't speak very well. And you had to go running to the bathroom so many times. And I remember doing that quite often as I was growing up. And that's what you call experiencing racism at the first degree. We were different, and I think we were the only Filipinos in St. Stephen's at that time. There was no blacks, and there's no Mexicans that I can remember. And so the kids thought we were really different. I had very, very few friends until about the 7th or 8th grade. And by that time, being there since the 4th, they've gotten used to me. So I know what it feels like to come here and adjust. It hurts, and you have to ignore a lot of hurt and go over that and say, I'm just as good as you are, and I will do my best, no matter what you say. No matter what they say, you know, call you names and put you down and make you feel bad. You have to ignore all that and go above it. Thank you.
Last year, anybody can answer. Was your American dream fulfilled?
Yeah, I think to a certain degree I have done well for myself. There were times early on where I did see that trace of discrimination or racism, as you call them now. I think the only place I really noticed that was when I was in the U.S. Armed Services. It just seemed to me that I know I had other qualifications. I was qualified to do other things. They somehow held me down. They did not, you know, let me move up to where I wanted to be. I guess that was the reason why I didn't stay in the service. I would have probably stayed on if I was given half the chance to do what I wanted to do. It was a very, very enjoyable time in my life to be in the service. It was just lots of fun. The only thing I did not like about it is the job. I did not like the job they gave me. I says, you know, I had made some good education when I came, and then here I am in the kitchen doing all this work. That really wasn't my style. I'd rather do something else, and they would not let me do that at all, so I left.
Place of opportunity. I got a job before I went to teaching, and then I was able to get my certificate. I finished while I was teaching, I was able also to pursue my studies and got my postgraduate degree and retired. And I find my life now not that easy because I was not able to, I was not able to accumulate money, but I enjoyed my life, making trips abroad after I retired. And then now I am living just a simple life, but I am happy that I'm here in America, and America has really provided me something that I am happy about. And at the same time, with my present position and with what I had in the past, I was able to extend help to those people in the Philippines, not only my relatives, but a few others who needed my help. And I think that is what I am really happy about being here in America. Thank you.
Elderly or the senior citizens, while we're having our snacks, because he would like to meet all of you and talk to you and find out what you need or what he can provide for you. Another announcement that I would like to make is after the cultural show at the UP Concert Choir in Vancouver, you are invited to come.
Anybody can answer this question. I've been thinking about this while I was listening. I was so impressed with what you told us, being the latecomer, I should say. If you have to do this again, what can you tell us, or the people that are still hoping to come over? My questions are twofold. Number one, what can you tell them to avoid? What are the pitfalls? And number two, what are the encouragement to them?
That reminds me, when I was assigned in Oak Harbor the second time, I worked for an officer whose advice is still vivid in my mind until now. He said, Jess, to really succeed and get along here in U.S., you have to continue going to school and try to learn to socialize with the white people. Don't stick with your people, he said. Because if you stick with your people, then what can you learn? You'll remain like a Filipino. And, but anyway, that's why what his advice was. And because of that advice, while I was in the Navy, anytime I was stationed ashore, I took advantage of schools. I went to evening classes. When I was in Whidbey Island, I went to, in the evening, I went to Skagit Valley College. When I got here in Portland, I went to Clark College. In this, every school that is available to me while I was in the Navy, I took it. I was in and out of San Diego, going to school to further my education, plus to give me an edge on promotion. I really made chief very quickly because of that advice. I heard about some areas in California where a whole block is Filipinos and that's it. And people who are Filipinos that go there in this area, they stay there, they don't really learn so much about United States. Their knowledge remains to be limited to Filipino attitudes. See? And probably the reason too that I stayed long in my business as an insurance agent is because of my background of being in the U.S. Navy. And when you're in the U.S. Navy, you live at close quarters with the whites. You learn how to, you learn how to talk with them. You learn to joke with them, talk with them, live with them, fight with them, whatever. And that helps a lot in dealing with the public. And I can see, and in my 38 years here in the United States, I know of some Filipinos who have been here for a lot longer time, yet hasn't really learned to, assimilate themselves with other group. But that's my advice. Don't limit yourself to your own group.
What Jess has said is quite true. And what I can advise is be flexible. Accept any offerings that they have to offer here. That's it.
I guess on a very personal level, what really helped me when I first came to this country was this experience with the vanilla ice cream. That really stuck in my mind. Being new, and I wasn't around very many Americans when I was in the Philippines. I wasn't into all this English stuff anyway, so when I realized when I could not communicate just getting my ice cream there, I said, well, I really have to do something about this. After I got out of the boot camp, I was stationed in Port Angeles at that time, I went into a very serious program of trying to learn this English language. I bought me a tape recorder. During my off hours, I'd go to a corner where I was working, and I would read aloud, I'd tape it, I'd listen to it, I'd make changes, I'd do all these things. I realized that since I was working here in this country, I needed to be able to communicate my ideas, everything about it. It was very, very crucial in my career, and I think it did pretty good for me. Without a doubt, in a job, the kind that I have, you definitely have to communicate and do it well. And if you don't speak their language, you're not going to be able to do it very, very well. One other thing that I found has worked for me is to work really hard. Of course, most Filipinos do anyway, but working hard, it's never killed anybody. And to me, working 12-hour days was not a problem. Of course, to some people it is, but the thing that really, like I said, did well for me is the fact that I was willing to put in the hours. I was able to, when I was working for some other people, I would stay late. I didn't demand any overtime pay. I just was there to do the job. Well, break time's okay. But I wasn't into keeping track of all the hours. My primary concern was to get the job done, and if it took a little more time, it took a little more time.
But being too scared, being too shy, these are things that we are taught in the Philippines, and I think this is our deterrent. This is my first speaking engagement, and it's really hard to do it because I have been bred into being quiet, being in the back seat, and I have had to fight this because, like Jaime said, you have to communicate, okay? And like he said, our accent is deterrent sometimes, and people judge us on this. And like him, I also tried to overcome my accent, and a lot of people don't know that I am Filipina because I don't have an accent on the telephone. And when they see me for the first time, they're, you know, taken aback. But it's a lot of hard work. I did, like you said, work on my linguistic abilities because I thought that was important, because I was hassled, I was made fun of. So you have to work hard to eliminate or to eradicate or to lessen the amount of the hassle and discrimination by doing your part too, okay? You have to try to reduce that amount by doing your part and doing as little to antagonize people. And it's nice to be different, and that's what makes us all individuals, okay? We're all different. But if you know something irritates somebody, try not to do it, you know? And that causes friction, and it causes fights. And also to encourage the children. It's been hard, okay? I have been a very hard taskmaster for my children to make them achieve the most that they can. And you have to be disciplined. It's what they call tough love. And at times, they'll hate you, but it's better they hate you now instead of 20 years from now when they can't get a job and nobody wants to put up with them. Because you might bend over backwards for your children, but nobody else will. You know, they're not doing their job, they're not doing what they're supposed to be, they will be fired, they will be put aside. So it's hard being a parent and being a disciplinarian, and this is what I've had to do, and I think if we did more of that, we would have less gangs and less troubles and less crimes, and also to discipline them in ways of spending also, because a lot of our kids are so materialistic. They want this, they want that, and we give it to them. And when they get out in the world, you know, nobody gives it to them, you know, so they charge and charge and charge, and they're way over their limits. So I think to encourage them, we have to teach them the reality of things and common sense. That's what it is. It's common sense. It's nothing on the books. It's how you live. You have to be the role model, and you have to temper your judgment with love and caring, true, but also discipline. This child abuse because you spanked your kids on the bottom because they did something wrong, I don't think it's right, you know? I mean, they're making their parents very afraid to discipline their children, and they shouldn't be, because this is why we're having so much social problems this time and age. Thank you.
I think that is my advice to these young people. Don't be bashful. Talk to these whites, because we are people, all people just the same. In fact, if you look around at these, other people, other whites around us, there are some of us who are a little bit better than they are. And I had one bad experience on a bus on my way from San Diego to Portland one time. I was sitting across the aisle from a quite old white woman. And then I talked to her. Then you know what she said? She told me flatly in the face, "I don't want to talk to you." Well, I just smiled. I did not have to put down myself to her level. If that's the way she talked, she thought about me, let her do it. This is a free country. But I have to be on my own, that I am not as bad as they are. In fact, I thought of her as someone who is very discriminating, thinking because I am an Oriental or whatever she thought of me. She said to me flatly, "I don't want to talk to you." So my advice to you is don't be shy. Be the first one to talk to them. And they will talk back to you, and you'll be able to carry on a good conversation. And that is based from my experience. So I avoid my bashful mistake.
And this is direct to Symposium's Betty Newman. Historically speaking, the migration, the Filipino migration here in America has been subdivided into many categories and brand names and labels. We do have the workers, the slaves, pensionados, the professionals, and during the war, we do have the war brides. In your talk, you identify and acknowledge that I came here as a bride. Now, this is in relation with data collating and collection as far as this is Filipino-American Historical Month. My question is, in as much as we've talked about discrimination, did you have any qualms or apprehensions when you met your first husband? That's one. Did you have any inkling that marrying, having an intermarriage or marrying another race will be your passport to go to another land, especially America? Did you have any privilege or any privileges as a war bride because of the situation when you came here in America? Because now we do have an intermarriage between Asian or Filipina and Caucasian, and the term is not war bride, but some Caucasians term it domestic appliances. So we just want to erase that as, you know, we want to know your own personal experience, your own personal conviction. Why are you marrying an American during that time?
Okay.
Okay? Thank you.
When I met him, like I said, no. No, I was working then at the UN World Health Organization, and a friend that worked with him called me on the phone, and he happened to pick up the same extension, and he heard my voice, and he liked it, and he decided he wanted to meet me. So we met, and that was the beginning of a romance.
Was it love at first sight, or it took you long?
No. He was a nice young man, and I was in my late teens, and it was physical attraction.
Did the race or the color matter, or?
No, I wasn't even thinking about those things.
Love is blind.
We don't have those things in the Philippines.
Really, in the Philippines, we don't.
And love is blind. And the neighbors ain't.
You came over here by any privilege being a woman, a Filipino woman married to a Caucasian serviceman?
Yes, when I first came to San Francisco, the people there were very friendly. And then we were stationed in Hamilton Field. We live in Novato, and I was expecting my first child. And everybody, the neighbors there, they greeted me. They had this welcome wagon at that time, you know, and they all came and brought me some pie and all kinds of American goodies. And life was different with me. I was very happy when I first came here.
First of all, one of the things I learned today was back in the 50s, there's probably a very wealthy individual at Sangley Point who, a very clever entrepreneur who sold bananas and sold this story to a lot of people who bought both the bananas and the story. My question is on something else though. especially for those who came here as adults, do you consider it an advantage that your formative years were in the Philippines? And do you consider it an advantage that you were born in a third world country and probably brought a lot of those values with you over? And if so, in what way are they an advantage, and in what areas?
Well, I think it's really a very concrete advantage for reason that you acquire before coming over, you have that Filipino values to bring with you. With that Filipino values that you are bringing over, and then you are not subject to the influence of bad influence, or the bad American influence that are so attractive to young people coming over, you know. So I think it is an advantage. I cannot just explain it very well, but I think it is an advantage to be coming over here as an adult. Any other opinion?
From our parents in the Philippines, our culture, our values that our parents taught us were of great importance in coming over here. We were disciplined in the homes. We were taught how to do housework, even though you have maybe one or two helps around the house, but still, I was grateful to my parents who really trained us all, children in the family, to do our chores in the house, to be respectful, to be kind, to be industrious. And when I came over, I did not find it hard to adjust here because I knew how to work. There were some people who, when they came over, they said they did not know how to cook, they did not know how to keep house, and that gave them a lot of frustration. But for me, that was a big asset for me before coming over. Our training in the Philippines from our parents was a great help in our coming over.
The teachings are not just with us when we're adults. I was a child when I came here, and I think I have held my values and my morals a lot better than some adults. And you have to pass this on. It's role models, you know, you see what your parents and your grandparents do, and so you don't have to be an adult to come here with those same kind of work ethics and morals. Thank you.
Jess and Sally. And I think it's really quite important, even though, you know, now we're in a different kind of society, I still find that, just like you said, the values, the ethics that we had in the Philippines, that one will never leave you. And it for me, it's done me well. And much more so than a lot of kids now that are born and raised in the United States. They have much more different values than we do, and I cherish that.
Yes, my children, I think they are my greatest contribution because they are continuing our heritage and passing it on, and also they're accomplishing a lot that the Filipino-American Association should be proud of, and also my books. What I have accomplished, I did not think I could do this. Okay, this was not my dream. It just came on as an inspiration, and it's made me feel very proud, and it's contributing science, art, and literature to little children. I wanted to be a teacher. That's what I wanted to be, but my mother died when I graduated from high school, and I did not continue to college. But now I think I have fulfilled my dream by doing what I have done. Thank you.
Pretty tough question there. Up until probably 3-4 years ago, I was very active in the Filipino-American Association. It was so much more fun then. And to that end, I have contributed, I think, for my own a personal viewpoint, I have contributed quite a bit to the association. I have worked hard to make this association grow. I've spent hours fundraising. I remember all those hard work just to make enough money to buy the building, which we did eventually. I remember spending days and days going caroling, trying to make money. I know for those people that went with us many, many years, they all had a good time. I spent a couple of my years serving as president of the association. I remember when, back in 1978, I think it was, we started what is now called the Balitaan. It used to be called the newsletter. We coined that word during the years that I was president. It's called the Balitaan, and I think it's, with more dedication and effort into that one, it could be a very good publication. There's many, many more. But in any case, I still have high hopes that the Phil-Am Association will grow, get better, and be more fun the way it used to be. Thank you.
To answer your question, what have I contributed to the association? I have served as secretary 2 terms, and auditor 2 terms, and assistant secretary 2 terms, and assistant auditor, I think, 1 term. And I try to come to the meetings every month, and I am cooperating with the new administration. That's all I can say.
Well, just like Biddy and Jaime, I have been a member of all these associations since late 1960s. And I remember the times when we had to work so hard to raise funds to pay for the building. I remember the time when we hold at Masonic Temple, luau. I remember the time that I had to go to someone else's house basement to practice dancing, like at the basement of Mrs. Feliciano there. There's so many affairs that we had to organize and to make sure it is profitable to raise funds for the building. And and it took so many years. And I'm still a member now, and I intend to become a member until such time, until the end of time, I guess. Yeah, as long as I live. I might not be so active as I used to be, but I'll remain as a member. Thank you.
Well, during the early days of the Filipino-American Association, I was also very busy being an old-timer, just like what he said. We participated in folk dancing, in fundraising, and I was coming regularly to the meetings then. And I was appointed for many years the chairman of the scholarship committee, which gave me an important task to do at the end of every year. And I think being a teacher, I have done a lot also for the Americans, because at the rate of 25 children a year, in my 18 years of experience here in America, just figured out how many children I also taught and took care all those 18 years when I was here.